Getting into the rut, I wanted to check out a couple of my spots out in the swamps, back in with my kayak. Always looks hot back in there. Found some big scrapes, some usual sign, but the bucks just weren't there. The temperatures were hot. I went down to camp for a weekend where I know it's always good down there, and I found myself fishing because the temperatures were in the 70s. The deer movement was zero. It was just awful. So that wrapped up a lot of my rut time and getting into about the week before gun season. Finally got into a little bit of action on the rye field that I sat. I sat it for several evenings. Lots of does, but the big boys just didn't seem to show up. I had one good hunt. It was an early morning. I had a bunch of does go into the hardwoods about 400 yards down. I could see they were being pushed by a buck. And about 45 minutes later, that buck made a turn all the way around me and came into about 6 or 7 yards, and with a steep angled shot, and I don't know, I just put it right over him. So on to opening weekend, on to putting a gun in my hands. Opening day 2022 gun season. So anyway, it's snowing pretty good. We got snowed in. We usually go down to camp, Dad and I, for opener, but the snow ban was too bad to drive through. We actually had no snow as of last night, and it actually didn't even have any snow walking in this morning. It was totally crunchy and dry, and then the snow just turned right on. And we're supposed to be getting it all day. So it's almost like the deer have been bedded because we haven't heard or seen anything. Minimal shots. Pretty quiet opening day. We're going to sit out here till about noon, pack it up, and then try to make a run down to camp before dark. Update. Noon opening day. Deer scene. About had it here. Looks like the snow's finally going to break for a minute. I'm ready to get in the truck and get the hell out of here. Look at some new woods. Get some tracks. Do a little tracking in the snow. I got a doe permit for the Southern Tier. It takes at least 2 years to get a doe permit down there. So these are perfect conditions to get tracking on a deer. So I got a couple things to do at home, and then Dad and I are going to hit the road and get down to camp. Get through the snow before it gets back down there again tonight. Alright, day 2 of the season. Not looking good. Yesterday was a bust. Good snow today, though. We'll see what happens.
Positive attitude.
Yeah. Feeling good. They're feeling good. So my plan that morning was to head to the biggest piece of state land that I knew of. We were getting some fresh snow coming in. It was coming down pretty heavy. So these are the road conditions, yeah? So I ended up going up on top of this hill, and about trying to see a track. So I kind of got up on the top of this mountain, and the snow is horrible. And here's a truck. So I ended up going down that and getting on the back side of the storm, what I believed, and figured that was a good place to start. Looking for some pines on the leeward side. That's kind of what I'm thinking today. So it's supposed to quit at 9. If the deer were bedded for most of that time, then they should be getting on their feet for sure. All right, finally made it out in the woods. Car's right there.
pines when it's windy. It's thick. It's been snowing all morning. It finally let up. I'm dry as a bone. Everybody's heading out of the woods. I hopefully timed it right. These deer are going to get up and start moving. I'm hoping even just to kick one up, then you can get on them and start going. Try to catch up to them.
So walking around, I ended up finding a trail, horse trail, that took me through a really thick, nasty cut that's probably 5 years old. And I cut a couple tracks that were going across the cut. But it was so thick and nasty through there, I figured I would make a ton of noise, and I didn't really know where I was, and it wasn't a huge buck, so I figured I'd keep moving, and maybe I'd circle around to head that way back to the car. And sure enough, that logging road turned, and it got me right around, and I was able to get a visual on these deer with one or two does together, and I set the stalk up on them, and I started moving through this old cut. Kind of difficult to navigate, a lot of little whips and trees growing, a lot of tops of trees blown over. On top of that, you're trying to figure out where the deer are, where they're hidden. The snow's picking up. The conditions really were perfect to be on your feet doing this. So it was just a matter of picking it apart and keeping moving. I ended up closing the gap on them and taking about a 70-yard shot on a doe, bounding around, and she got away clean. So one thing I noticed this time about what these deer feed on is that they were in these open cuts, and what happens is after a couple of years the cut turns into raspberry bushes, and that seemed to be what these deer were feeding on, were the raspberry bushes that were kind of growing up and some of the grass that was growing up in these cuts. It was pretty interesting.
Some fresh coyote tracks. Too bad you can't hunt out of your car. Pretty good blind right there. That's right. I drive a station wagon, but I also got up the road today, no problem. What is this, day 3 of the season? Monday, right? Monday, yep.
Monday.
Day 3, still 0 deer hanging.
So the plan for today was to go back to the state land piece that I had that encounter with that 8-pointer and the apples with. I started my morning there. Foolishly though, I should have gone to where I thought the buck would be, not where I saw him last. So when I got up at about 9 and it was cold and took a walk to where I thought he would be, I ended up getting on a track that was super fresh, probably a couple hours old. And had I been in there at first light where I wanted to be, I might have encountered that buck at least. Probably not that 8-pointer, but he had to look like he had a pretty good track on him. This state land piece, this seems to happen when I get on a track and that I run into posted signs and the deer crosses over and just keeps moving because that's what they do, and I end up losing it and wasting the time, and it's not a good place to do that.
Just heading out, get some lunch, change my clothes, I'm pretty sweaty. But not a bad morning. Tracked a buck. Lost him at the posted signs, and I'm just gonna head out now down this logging road. Head down this logging road on the way out. Well, it's a beautiful afternoon, and I got a deer down. Walking all morning, tracking, hiking, just been freaking moving, and I was on my way out to get some lunch, get a break. I was just down this hill a little bit. She's feeding on these acorns. There was 2 of them there, and yeah, I got her. Shaking pretty good. All right. This is my first deer off of this state forest. I missed that big 8-pointer over here, a different spot. I hunted there this morning for him. Saw a spike, that was it. Now I'm gonna go get the old man, bring him back. Yes.
Well, when you get done let's go get on the blood trail.
Nice sized doe too.
Good, huh?
Yeah.
With a deer?
Oh yeah. At least a 2.5.
Yeah.
Finally. Made it back. Pretty easy drag. Mostly downhill.
That should be good, right?
Watch the mirrors.
As hunters, we go through stages of our career. When you're young, it's about just being out and experiencing whatever it is that your dad's doing, wandering out around the woods with a gun. When you get a little bit older and you get a little skilled and you get a couple kills under your belt, it's about how many tags can you fill and how successful can you prove you are. Now that I'm a little bit older, it's about selecting certain animals, harvesting them, but most importantly, making memories with my family and teaching the next generation of kids what it's like to be excited and to wait for dad to come home to see, is there something in the back of the car? Is he getting out the wagon to hang a deer in the tree? So it doesn't matter if it's a buck or a doe. At the end of the day, it's about putting it in the freezer, teaching your kids where their meals and their meat come from, and appreciating these awesome creatures that are here for us.